there are 10,000 non-emergency transportation companies in LA. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but there's a lot. Okay, there's a bunch of them. And I said to this particular case manager, how often, how many times a week, how many times a month do you have a guy like me that comes by and drops off brochures?
Probably zero.
Zero.
Welcome back to NEMT Experts. I've got, as usual, a very special guest with me today, my buddy Chris Buell. Chris is extremely experienced in NEMT. He ran his own NEMT businesses for decades, and now he helps other NEMT businesses to win private pay work, in addition to helping them with dispatching operations as well. Chris, my man, how you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Very excited. And believe me, I was bragging. I'm going to be interviewed today. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I had a great time getting interviewed by you for your channel the other month. So happy to have you on to the Bambi podcast finally. Cool. Chris, can you just give the audience a quick background about you and your experiences in NEMT?
Yeah, so I have been in the industry for maybe more than a couple of decades, but I haven't owned and operated for basically I owned and operated a non-emergency transportation company in Phoenix, Arizona. And I did sell it, and I've sold it successfully. And I think it's like the second or third largest today non-emergency transportation company there now. And then I opened up from scratch another one in Little Rock, and I ended up just shutting that one down. And what I did after that is I started what I'm doing now, which is the NEMT Solutions Center. And basically, from my experience of having owned and operated non-emergency transportation companies, I knew where my pain points were, and I wanted to create a company that filled the gap in on those pain points. What are the pain points? Well, the biggest part of my business today is doing private pay sales. And I also, on occasion, will do dispatching. But frankly, I'm open to doing a lot. Doing collections, doing recruiting, addressing the pain points of whatever that part is. Before you and I started this interview, like we had a little conversation that our job is to deliver value to the viewers. And so I don't want it to be a big sales pitch on what my company does. But I will say, like, we've got a lot of different programs on our website, and I'll let it go at that if you want to check it out.
Yeah, so Chris's website is NEMTSolutionsCenter.com. Chris, I want to focus today's discussion on what you primarily do now, which is help NEMT businesses to win private pay work. So an NEMT company can be in any part of the country. You remotely will basically find all the facilities in their area, and you have a process for calling up these facilities and selling into them and selling the NEMT businesses services to those facilities and winning these private pay contracts. Can you give us some insights, Chris, on like what are the main sort of pain points that NEMT businesses face when starting up and trying to win private pay work, and how you sort of overcome those pain points?
Okay, the biggest pain point is it doesn't happen right away. I will say this. If you own a non-emergency transportation company, you 100% don't need to hire my team or my company to build your business. It will make it easier. But again, my philosophy is it's our job as business owners to go after all of the work. And I always say this, never prejudge where the business is coming from. I happen to have owned and operated two companies where the majority of my revenue was private pay. I didn't even know what a broker was for a long time. And I kind of was pretty anti-broker for reasons. We could talk about it. We could not talk about it. But for example, if you were to hire my company, I would create a prospect list. That prospect list would have no less than 1,000 private pay customers, as well as an extensive broker list. And again, like I will go after brokers. I will go after private pay. If I were to start this today, I mean, that's what I would do. I would go after everything. I always like to tell the story that when I started my second business in Little Rock, I hit everything you can think of, the hospitals, the nursing homes, whatever. And I got no business. And I mean zero. And I was freaking out. To be honest, I borrowed some money. I was too old to be borrowing money. And I borrowed money and I was dying on the inside because I had no business. And I ended up getting a job doing telemarketing for a carpet cleaning company. And the only reason I did that job was to give me something to do so my mind didn't freak out in the meantime. If I had to do things over today, I would have spent more time going after brokers. Even if you just need to use them to get you by until you can bridge the gap. And that's the answer to your question. What's the biggest pain point? So for me, the very first run that I got after opening my doors the second time was like something like 2.5 months. After 2.5 months, I got a hospital discharge, and it was on the exact day I didn't want to call. I was at my son's birthday. I was an hour and a half away. I remember to this day. I had to leave my son's birthday, and I went and did this run. It wasn't a particularly easy run, and by the second time they gave me my second order, it was months down the road. In the meantime, I found other businesses that gave me other work. And by the time I closed my doors, that hospital happened to be Baptist Hospital in Little Rock. I had every single Baptist hospital in Little Rock under using me. So like, again, it worked well, but it didn't happen right away. It did. I think I was profitable 3 months in. I mean, but those first 2 months, I was scared. I didn't have any business.
So what was it that, like, when you were first trying to win those private pay, it wasn't working, but then a couple of months in, you were able to win them?
I tell everybody, my clients, this is good advice. It's free advice. They don't need you. They don't need me. They're getting by. Okay. And it's our job as business owners to bother the client and let them know we're available. And there's a correct way to do that, because there is such a thing as bothering to the point of like they're not going to call you. And then there's sweetly reminding them we're here, and you got to fine tune that. You have to do it in such a way that they remember your name when they have a need. But right now, everybody's got a way. They're using someone else or doing something else. So yeah, I mean, it's our job to bother the client.
Any sort of insights on how to walk that fine line between bothering them too much that like they're like, oh my God, forget these guys, or not bothering them enough that they, don't even bother with you?
I can give you an answer, and I don't know if it's going to satisfy. I think every aspect of owning and operating a business requires you to listen to your gut. If you feel this is going to bother them, you should pay attention. Again, I will tell you that I can't tell you how many times I get people that say, thank you for letting me know about this particular non-emergency transportation, so I make calls on behalf of non-emergency companies today. And I'm telling you, it happens all the time where they're like, thank you for the information. They want the information. And I'll give you my secret. My secret ingredient is this. I pick up the phone, and let's say we're calling a hospital. I will ask for case management. And generally, they put me right through to case management. A lot of times I get the voicemail, and so I got to call every day until somebody finally picks up. And that's sort of the part of the job that sucks, is the boring work. But finally, they'll answer the phone. and I'll say, hey, my company provides non-emergency transportation. Can I send you an email just to make sure you guys are aware of us? They never say no. So I send them an email. And before I let them go, I'll say, do you care if I follow up in a couple days just to see if you got it, see if you have any questions? I call it the yes snowball, because they already said yes to the email. They'll say, yeah, you can follow up. That's fine. So I call them, I send the email, I do the follow-up call. And then on the follow-up call, I say, if we're ever in the area, do you care if I drop off brochures or just introduce ourselves? They never say no to that. And so then I have a tab on my list, and I'll put it on customers to visit, and I'll let my client know, hey man, you need to go by there. Again, you don't need to hire me. And I always recommend, if you have 1 or 2 vans, you really don't need to hire me. Just do it yourself. But then you go by and you visit. And again, like we've really moved this relationship where they've heard from the company a bunch of times that they're familiar. I might, depending on how that conversation goes, I might follow up in a week, depending on what we discussed. And if it was straight up cold, I just might send them an email in a month. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to bother them to get an email once a month. Oh, yeah. So again, you just kind of got to go off how your gut feels about the situation.
Chris, it's interesting. In the 2 years that I've been doing Bambi, I haven't come across anyone like you who does this particular thing, which is focus on helping NEMT businesses win private pay work. Like, this is like your sort of unique selling point, like the unique niche thing that you do. You have a ton of experience in it. And one of the things that I remember, we were talking like some months ago, and you were telling me, and I remember you, because the way you phrased this, like you said, putting in the effort for me is effortless in doing this kind of thing. Like, so like when you say, the boring stuff of calling them up every day, doing this, like, you sort of gotten it down to like a machine in your head about like, here's how I approach a facility. Here's sort of the sequence of steps I do. And like, it's just this like sort of ingrained sort of motion that you've built in yourself. And it's like, second nature to you. Is that sort of right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, that's fair. I will tell you, like my little YouTube channel, I occasionally have just students. People call me up and they want advice. One of the best pieces of advice that I give, and I'm going to give it away for free today here. If you're just starting off, don't start calling on non-emergency transportation business that you want close to you. Focus on the part of town where you don't want to work. Go practice, because you're going to be nervous and you're going to suck at it. But after you do it a few times, it'll be second nature to you. So again, like the secret ingredient is most people are too lazy to pick up the phone and sell. They're too lazy to go down there. Nobody wants to sell. There's something about that that's embedded in American society that makes you afraid. And you know what? I get it. Frankly, when you go to a nursing home and there's a sign out there that says no solicitors, like, I don't want to break the law. I don't want to break in. I don't want to start off on the wrong foot. But that's why my technique is I pick up the phone and I get a name and I say, hey, can I drop off brochures and introduce myself? And then you go in, and I spoke with Sandy last week. She said I could drop these off. By the way, is she available? Can I say hi? So
I like it.
I'll tell you, I was in I have different packages, and one of my packages, I will go to you once a quarter. And so I had a client at the time, and I would go once a quarter to Los Angeles. And I went to a hospital there, and I had built a relationship up with this case manager. There are 10,000 non-emergency transportation companies in LA. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but there's a lot. Okay, there's a bunch of them. And I said to this particular case manager, how often, how many times a week, how many times a month do you have a guy like me that comes by and drops off brochures? What was his answer?
Probably zero.
Zero. Yeah. You remember the book Blue Ocean? Like, do you remember that blue, like you want to find the blue water? So it was a business book, and it was a little bit popular. And the theory was You don't want to be in the red ocean. The red ocean is full of blood because there's sharks in there. You want to go to the blue ocean. There's no sharks. Again, like all you got to do is go introduce yourself, and most people won't.
So when you recommend going to a part of town where you don't want to do trips and trying to sell to facilities there, is the idea that like, hey, practice in an area that is low stakes for you, so that when you get into the motion of like selling and you figure out how to do it well, then you go to the area, the facilities that are nearby you that you actually want to sell to, and you're already good at selling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And even with me, even doing it, I will tell you, like about, say a month ago, I got a call from a workers' compensation lawyer wanting rates. Okay. I have never called on a workers' compensation lawyer in my life. They called me, or, they called one of my clients and they wanted rates. And I said to them, I said something like, why am I not calling on businesses like you? And she said, I don't know, but you should. So you know what I did? I went out and I ordered a bunch of workers' compensation lawyers for every single one of my clients, and I started calling on them. And, I have this little, I was nervous because I've never called on them. And that's what I'm saying. Like it takes a little while to kind of get your selling legs and feeling good. I mean, and that's why I say call on the part of town where you don't want business. Go make your mistakes where you don't want the business anyways.
Practice before you go for the
right.
Can you give me some stories, Chris, about like clients that you've worked with and like, help them really turn around the makeup of the rise they're getting from whatever it was before to like prime time, private pay work in their area that paid well?
I will tell you, I got a guy, he has agreed to come on my channel. And when I first started this, I don't think I was charging. And he was my very first student. And he said, Christopher, you're insane. You need to start charging. So, anyways, this particular guy, I always tell everybody this. Listen, people are successful because of they themselves. Again, like I will help, but you will not be successful because of me. You will be successful because of yourself. You will also be a failure because of yourself. Again, like I'm telling you, I have people that hire me, and I will get them 20 different companies for them to go visit, and they visit none of them. Like, man, I did all the hard work. All you got to do is go by and be the good guy. So again, I just want to make that clear. This guy is not successful because of me. He's successful because of himself. But he did tell me, like we worked together close in the beginning, and then we had a little distance, and then we kind of came back, and I checked in with him, and he would say that first phone call got me this particular, whatever broker, and I've made X amount of dollars from that. And like he sort of modeled his business. He took every piece of advice that I gave, and he went from 1 van to 4 vans in 1 year. And I'm not really impressed by the number of vans anybody has, because it doesn't really matter. What matters is how much money you make. And this particular guy, there were ways he understood the business better than me. I mean, and he said, he's in California. He's paying his guys $18 an hour or whatever it was. He ended up, I'm trying to be careful with my words because I don't want to reveal too much, but let's just say he got a client that he kept people available in the afternoons for hospital discharges, okay? And I'm always a believer in hospitals, that hospitals are a good one to get. And he would pay a guy $18 an hour to sit for 4 hours, specifically to be available in the afternoons for these hospital discharges. And being available in turn made him, man, it was something, it was a big number. It was 25,000 in 3 months or something like that. And he didn't work these guys every day, but the days that they were available, they did these hospital discharges. I feel as though in some ways that's the pinnacle of what I can do. But it really and truly had less to do with me and more to do with the guy's own initiative, his own drive. But I helped him.
Yeah. So basically, like if an NEMT business genuinely wants to win private pay work and they just don't have the know-how of how to do it, they can get your help. You'll line up the prospects for them. Here are the facilities in your area. You'll have called them, you'll have primed them, and you'll tell the NEMT business, look, these are the facilities that are ready. You just got to walk in, meet this person, hand them this brochure. You can win these contracts. Like that's how it works best.
Yes.
Or works
I always say that, like, stop the madness. Nobody is going to pick up the phone and slam someone into buying a product. Like, it doesn't work that way. I don't have a golden tongue. That's not going to happen. What can happen is if you approach people in the right way, they will look at that email. If your prices are right and you remind them in the correct amount of times in the correct way, why wouldn't they hire you? Everybody loves an underdog's story. And I'm telling you, there were so many times people were like, proud, man, I was with Christopher when he had one van. I knew him when he had one van. Like, do you know what I'm saying? They are rooting for you. If you go in there humble and again, I always think that like the ideal client for me is a guy with 5 vans. Within 5 vans, 6 vans, something like that. My rates are fantastic, and I will do they're running the business, and I will do the boring part. I'll get past the gatekeeper. I'll do that. I'll set it. I'll do that stuff. And I always say that like I'm planting seeds, and I'll plant those seeds every day of the week. You just manage your business. But when I don't know who your ideal viewer is. If it's a guy with 1 or 2 vans, he doesn't need me. And I'm telling you, the secret ingredient is called working. And you can pay me, and I'll accept it, and I'll get you the best prospect list. I'll get you a broker list. I'll do all this. I'll help you. You don't need to. You just need to put yourself out there.
Put yourself out there is the overarching theme.
Yeah, you know what? Don't be lazy. That's it. And again, like I was telling, I tell anybody who will listen to me, if you own a non-emergency transportation company and you have 1 van, you're either taking a patient or you're doing sales. And that's it. But most people won't do sales.
So you touched on this a bit earlier, but like, where do brokers come into this? Let's say you have 1 or 2 vans, you're just starting up, you want to get going. Like, what would you recommend in terms of like the go and spend your time winning private pay work for facilities versus going and trying to get work from brokers or both?
Both. Again, if it's my business, you need to work as many hours in the day as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is during the day, you do daytime work. What is daytime work? Daytime work is either taking a patient or it's picking up the phone and making the sales calls or going down there and visiting them. In the evenings, you're filling out broker paperwork. And like I said, you never prejudge the business.
Yeah. It seems pretty straightforward, Chris.
Yeah, no, honestly, it is. I mean, again, like I could have a conversation about the pros and cons of owning and operating a non-emergency transportation company. And there's plenty There's plenty of pros, there's plenty of cons. But yeah, I mean, honestly, well, I'll tell you what I like about this business. A lot of it is going to be, man, they got to take your call. They got to deal with you. You know, I mean, it's business to business. And again, you go about it in the right way. They're not going to say no. They're not going to say no to the information. They may say no to not hiring you, but yeah, again, I mean, the secret ingredient is working hard. So yeah, during the daytime, you're doing private pay, making private pay phone calls, sending out private pay information. And then at night, yeah, go ahead and fill out the broker information. So
the skill set that you have, it's pretty specialized. Like, you don't sell, you know, any kind of businesses, services to anyone. You specialize in non-emergency medical transport, where you have decades of experience. You focus on selling NEMT services to facilities and hospitals. And like, you probably do that better than anyone, right?
I would say probably so. I mean, probably so. I have, but what is the truth? The truth is I could do it better than anyone because I've been doing it the longest. But I don't think I am particularly special. I've just been doing it longer. Again, like I know I could sell. I can and do on occasion sell other products for other people that come my way. I mean, it happens all the time. Like where a non-emergency transportation owner says, "Okay, I do own a non-emergency company, but I also own this other company. Christopher, can you do that?" So it's not like I don't have experience. You know, my dad was he was a salesman his whole life, and so he kind of raised me a little bit to be marinated in this industry. And like he used to tell me about, Christopher, you don't got to be that good to sell. You just got to do it. And like, again, I would love to tell you that I've got this golden tongue and I'm super gifted, but that'd be a lie. I'm not afraid to pick up the phone, and that's what makes me a good salesperson. And again, for the guy that is watching your video that has no experience selling, I'm telling you, you can be a good salesperson. And like I said, we're not gonna slam anyone. Like we're gonna make them, you know, you present information and treat them with dignity, and not, you know, nobody wants to be on the receiving end of a telemarketing call where they're just rambling on. And again, I call in such a way that I let the prospective client know I'm not going to bully them into a phone call they don't want to have. Yeah, it's common sense. Treat people with dignity, present the information, and let them buy if your product is good.
I like how simple you make it out to be, which it is, and you're genuine about it.
Run, Bambi, run. By the way, I really and truly, I work with people that work with Bambi, and I'm telling you, I've never heard anything other than the highest level of praise for the software. So run, Bambi, run.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.